What up? It's your boy Wall Street, and I'm back, ready to talk some hoops. And today, talking about the Celtics, because I've been seeing some wild trade rumors about the Celtics, and I recently made my season recap video for them. I kind of think that obviously Jason Tatum's going to miss the majority, if not all, of next season due to his Achilles injury. But I think it still makes sense for them to kind of stand pat and, try to, run it back, not next season, but the season after in the 26-27 season. But obviously, things in the NBA move pretty quickly, and teams get very frustrated with how their teams perform, and they tend to break things up a lot quicker than they should, right? A big part of that, though, is the financial restrictions that are now a part of the NBA, which are the first level apron and the second level aprons that restrict teams that spend a certain amount on their payroll. So let's talk about this, right? Because the reason I want to talk about the Celtics is because Jaylen Brown has been coming up in a lot of trade rumors, right? And I guess this is being spurred by the fact that the Celtics are now going to be without their biggest star next season in Jason Tatum. And it's almost like a gateway for them to kind of break things up so they don't have as much, big contracts. Don't have as many big contracts on their books for next season, right? Because they have a lot of guys that are getting paid a lot of money, right? The Celtics have one of the biggest payrolls in the league. So in next year, they might have the largest. I'm not sure for next year because I know Jason Tatum is starting his extension or his new deal, so he's going to have a big jump in his salary. He was getting paid $34.8 million this year. That jumps to $54.1 million next year. So that's a $20 million jump that Jason Tatum's going to have in his contract. Jaylen Brown is jumping up $4 million from $49.2 million to $53.1 million. And Jaylen Brown's contract runs through the 28-29 season, in which he's going to get paid $64.9 million. So Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have two of the biggest contracts in NBA history. So it would make sense that they're not going to be able to keep both these guys, right? That's just how it is, right? Unless you want to severely limit your team and what they can do, with those restrictions that get placed on you when you, violate the apron rules and all that stuff. So, but Jaylen Brown right now has $285 million guaranteed. Jason Tatum has $277 million guaranteed. You also have Derek White, who has $111 million guaranteed through 28-29, but that season will be a player option for him at $34.8 million. So he'll be a free agent if he picks up that option in the summer of 2029. So there's a lot to think about, right? But so their payroll for this season, per basketballreference.com. Shout out basketballreference.com. Great website. If you're into hoops, check it out. For 24-25, their payroll was $193.3 million, right? And the salary cap is $140 million. 140.5. Next year, their payroll is slated to be $227 million. So that is going to be a problem for them, right? Because it's going to extremely prohibit a lot of things, right? Because when you get through that second apron, you lose a lot of things, right? You can't do sign and trades for players and stuff like that. It's just you don't have a lot of flexibility. So the reason I'm talking about all this is because I'm seeing all these trade rumors about Jaylen Brown, right? And Jaylen Brown has been put in trade conversations because now they're saying, all right, if they can offload Jaylen Brown, because they're definitely not offloading Jason Tatum, this gives them a chance to maybe retool their roster, get some draft picks that they can use to draft good players that are going to be on a rookie deal for 4 years, right? Because that's a very big advantage in the NBA is you have rookie players that might be able to play better than most, rookies or sophomore players in the league, and you have them on a salary-controlled contract, right? Because all rookies that get drafted in the first round get signed to rookie deals. They're guaranteed those 4-year deals, which involves 2 years of guaranteed money and then 2 additional years at the tail end that are both team options, right? But if you're the first pick in the draft, I think Zachary Risachet this past year's number 1 overall draft pick, you're getting paid like $12 million in the first season. But comparatively, right, if you have a guy that's really performing at $12 million a year, averaging, 15, 16, 17 points a game, that could be a lot better than maybe having, Jaylen Brown, who's averaging 22 points a game and getting paid 50 something million dollars a night, right? So that's what you have to think about. It's very hard to do this in the NBA, right? But this is why the Thunder have had such a successful, team, because they had so much draft capital. They drafted a lot of good players, and they have a very good player development staff as well. And just the overall program on how they develop their players is very just top notch. So just keep that in mind too. But the Celtics are one and the same, right? The Celtics know how to develop their players. They're very good at player development. But obviously they're not trading Jason Tatum. If they can offload Jaylen Brown, it would save them a lot of stress financially. And they might also trade Derek White. But let's talk about Jaylen Brown, right? So the trade rumor that I saw that I thought was very interesting, which frankly I think is the only real deal that the Celtics would take, it's an interesting deal, right? So everyone's talking about, how the Dallas Mavericks and the San Antonio Spurs jumped up in the NBA draft lottery, right? The Mavericks jumped up like 10 or 11 spots, and the Spurs jumped up from like 8 to 2, right? So very lucky. Luck was on their side that night. But so the trade proposal that I read, it was on Twitter or Yahoo or something, was that the Spurs would trade Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, who just won Rookie of the Year, Jeremy Sohan, the number 2 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, a 2027 first-round pick, and a 2030 first-round pick, all in exchange for Jaylen Brown. So, personally, I think this trade would not be good for the Spurs. I just don't think it would be a good trade for the Spurs. I think you're getting back a very good player in Jaylen Brown, but you're not. I just think you're giving up way too much. You're giving up way too much, right? Because the Spurs are clearly trying to surround Victor Wembanyama with all-star talent and guys that can win now, that are also not, at the end of the road, right? Jaylen Brown's only 28 years old. So the Spurs have Victor Wembanyama. They have De'Aaron Fox. If they get Jaylen Brown, that's an interesting team. It's a very interesting team for sure. But I still think, if they're able to get Giannis, I'm trading for Giannis if I'm the Spurs over Jaylen Brown, right? So if you had this exact same deal in exchange for Giannis Antetokounmpo, I'm doing that. I'm not doing it for Jaylen Brown, right? And that's no knock on Jaylen Brown. It's just Giannis is a much different player. And frankly, at this point in time, he's a better player and more valuable player than Jaylen Brown. That's just my personal opinion. But obviously, if this was an offer that the Celtics received, I'd probably do it. Because to get, in a year where Jason Tatum's going to be out, right? You lose Jaylen Brown, and you get back Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, Jeremy Sohan, the number 2 overall pick in the draft, which you can use to draft Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey or whoever you want, right? And then also getting a 2027 first-round pick from the Spurs and a 2030 first-round pick from the Spurs. There's no way, if I'm Brad Stevens and I'm overseeing the Celtics organization, there's no way I'm passing up on that deal. There's no way. So, hey, who knows? I doubt that would actually ever be a real offer, but, who knows? The only other real one that I saw, and I'm sure we're going to see plenty of these throughout the summer, but only other real one I saw was the Magic trying to trade for Jaylen Brown, and that would include like Franz Wagner and Jonathan Isaac and Mo Wagner. And if I'm the Celtics and you're trying to offload Jaylen Brown, you've come to that conclusion that you want to offload Jaylen Brown, I would do it because I think Franz Wagner and Jason Tatum would play amazing next to each other, right? But I still don't think that makes a lot of sense, right? If you're going to do that, right? Because Franz Wagner, he's going to get paid, right? He's already signed an extension with the Magic. And I don't think that would be enough, right? You would still have to get some draft picks back. So if you throw in a couple of draft picks, that makes it a little bit different. But who knows? Who knows what could happen, right? But, Franz Wagner just signed a huge extension, 5 years, $224 million. So on some level, trading him for Jaylen Brown doesn't really fix your financial issues. The only real way that you fix the financial issues is with that Spurs trade, because you're getting back the second overall pick in the upcoming draft. You're getting Stephon Castle, who still has 3 years left on his rookie deal. Jeremy Sohan's not going to be a super expensive player. Devin Vassell might be a little bit more expensive, but again, you don't have to keep all these guys. I think the main thing is getting Stephon Castle, getting the draft picks as well, and getting Jaylen Brown off the books while Jason Tatum recovers, and then you have him come back, and then you're theoretically under that apron again, and you're not having the same level of financial restriction as you had before. So I don't know. I think if I'm the Celtics, I'm taking that Spurs trade. I'm doing it. But again, what I've said time and time again is NBA teams get very frustrated very quickly. And they think just because they won the previous year and then they lose the next year, that it's over. It's time to, throw in the towel and change the whole team up. And I'm not down with that, right? I don't think that makes a ton of sense. I think teams have done that in the past, and they've lost a chance of winning for the next 15, 20 years by doing it, right? Where they could have won in 2 years, right? You might not win a championship every single year, but you could win 2 championships in 4 years, or 3 championships in 6 years, right? You just might not win every year, right? But I think people just get they're so used to instant gratification in the NBA that if something doesn't work one time, it's over, and you change things up, right? And sometimes it works, but I feel like most of the time it doesn't. So I think whatever the Celtics do, there probably are going to be some trades coming. Obviously, with Jason Tatum out, the season's probably going to be considered a wash. And, it's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. But I think the team will see some changes, because to have a year where you're not even having Jason Tatum and to be under the apron, you're probably going to have to figure that out, because it's just not going to help. It's going to be a real issue. So that's all I got, guys. Let me know what you think about this Jaylen Brown trade rumor noise, and leave some comments down below. Do you think the Celtics should trade Jaylen Brown? If so, what kind of deal do you think, gets that done? And, what team do you think does it? So that's all I got, though. I'm going to check you later. Stay up, stay blessed, stay humble, stay safe, handle business, stand on business. Peace out.